Welcome back, and now we're going to be looking at the reign, in inverted commas, of Alhaji Sanusi Lamido Sanusi at the Central Bank of Nigeria as its governor since 2009, when he took over from Professor Chukwuma Soludo. Well, maybe it's a good thing that he won the African Central Bank Governor of the Year award.
Again.
He won it last year, and he's won it again this year. What does that say about the tenure of Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as Central Bank Governor in Nigeria? Well, to look at his achievements and maybe his failings at that institution, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Boniface Chizie, who is an economist. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you with us again. You haven't been in a long time.
Well, I have to live the same for some other people, you know.
Welcome, Boniface.
Thank you very much.
And sitting beside him is Mr. Festus Odoko, who is former director, West African Monetary Agency. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, madam.
And we also have a financial analyst, Mr. Martin Udogie, with us.
Thank you, Alera. Good morning.
Yes, a lot has happened in the last 4 years. There were all kinds of reforms in the banking industry, and a lot of people have said that it was all for the general good. I'd like to hear what you think. Let's start with you, Dr. Chizie. How would you assess Sanusi Lamido Sanusi's tenure as central bank governor up to this point, even though he still has 1 year to go?
Well, I think that you start from the fact that you said he's won 2 awards back to back. You know, is it 3? You were saying
3. He has won 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah, so I think that's this. Yeah, with respect that these are independent bodies, you know, so with respect that they've done their assessments. But obviously, if you look at Lamido Sanusi's regime at Central Bank, and you go back 4 years, a lot had happened. At some point in time, you know, the worry was that the speed at which things were being done. One was a bit concerned about really the sequencing and the absorptive capacity. Now, if you go cut across, if you take from the first thing he did was he saw the banking system, and he thought that there were issues with the banking system, being an insider. And the first thing he did was to try and clean up the system. In the process, he sacked 8 chief officers of banks. You know, then
that took some courage.
That took some courage. You know, it's never happened in this environment. Now, so he did that, and if you went down the line, he also advertised bank debtors, and some of those guys on the list. Again, that was courageous, big boys. You know, he advertised, and he went on again in trying to make sure that he put the banking system in a proper and fit state. Now he facilitated setting up of AMCOM. If you go to the structure of the banking system, you look at he threw away universal banking and introduced a different system because he saw that there were issues with universal banking. He went to microfinance banks. You know, he created a 2-stage structure, microfinance bank, to make sure that they are more effective. He introduced Islamic banking. I thought was like it was there before he came, but at least it took effect, and of course more controversy again followed it as part of his process. If you go to corporate governance issues, he came with the tenure thing and said, look, if you're a CEO and you've done 10 years, you have to go. It's a bit retroactive, and some of my friends were caught in the process. He introduced international financial reporting. You know, you go to products and services. Tremendous. Look at the cashless economy, which all of us, if you things are not a lot more easy for us to cashless economy. Women, you know, I mean, they empower women. It became gender wanted to be gender sensitive to encourage women and so on. And the Bankers Committee under his watch declared the 2012 as a year of women. And it was wanting products, the bank designed products that would target women and the cost of borrowing and so on and so forth. And various funds were put in place to address certain issues. But if you, the small-scale industries, the financing, aviation and manufacturing, they are put in place at 7% interest. I mean, there are issues that somewhere diverted. The customers, it is not about the customers. The customer set up a department in Central Bank, to make sure that customer complaints are looked into. And I was going to be talking to the banks, to ensure that bank charges are realistic and customer friendly. And as you move on and you go to the indices, if you look at the indices within the system, you look at things like rate of inflation. But, price stability is the core function of the central bank. Rate of inflation at some point in time got down to single digit. It's not happened for a long time.
Inflation?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has influenced our monetary policy, hasn't it?
Yes.
And the level of influence it has had, it then makes one begin to wonder that, yes, it seems like inflation is going down, but our foreign exchange, our currency rate is still high, and some people are recommending that it should not be regulated or propped up the way it is being propped up currently.
Well, I think I defend that really when you talk of the rate of currency, exchange rate of currency, what is most important for most people, most economic agents, is to have stability within the system, so that between two sectors of a business, you're able to predict. Otherwise, if you do business and you got the money at say 150 naira to a dollar, and you're not sure what rate's going to be when you go through the next cycle, it will be very difficult for you to say, look, how much am I my pricing, what profit am I going to get, and so on and so forth.
But yet the stability is good. But what some economists are saying is that yes, we should have the stability, but at the same time, it should be the value of the naira should be reduced to enable us to deal more appropriately with the issue of imports of goods to Nigeria.
If you talk to the monetary authorities outside those places, they feel that Naira is even too strong for what it is. You see, it's not,
that's what they're saying. Yeah, that it is too strong, and we should devalue it.
Yeah, but you see, you have to be careful, because then you have to bring it to a level that you can support it. It has to, if you put it at a level that you cannot support, if I thought that what we are saying is that central bank is using up reserves, to back up. I think that if you are going to create any criticism, that there's an over concentration on the rate of exchange of the naira. The central bank of Sanusi has tried to keep this rate within a band, whereby the premium is within 5%.
Is that a good thing?
It is, like I said earlier, because it's good in the sense that it's more predictable. Businessman can do business and say, look, I know that within this band, it's not going to fall outside this band. I can calculate, what the prospects are in terms of, if I'm doing business.
Okay. Mr. Adoko, I saw you nodding all the time when Mr. Chizie was speaking, so I assume you agree with everything he has said. So I'm going to, most of it. Yeah, so I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going to ask you to assess Governor Sanusi. Have all these measures affected the economy positively? Because we still don't see industry. Unemployment is still very, very high. So what have been the benefits to us really and to the economy in general?
Thank you very much indeed. When you have inflation rate that is low and stable, that makes the other people be able to plan, like Dr. Chizia said. And the planning, is so important, just both for the producer and even the consumer. So when you keep inflation rate down, I can borrow, knowing that, look, next time I'm going to pay, the naira will still be stable for me.
Yeah, okay? But you're borrowing at 23%.
Yes. Now, we know that even when you talk about the interest rate at that level, there are some things that you borrow at 23%. There are some also, because we want to be able to drive production, that we have seen, for instance, the assistance that the bank has given to the agriculture, the assistance that the bank has given to industry, and these ones that are channeled through, for instance, the Bank of Agriculture or through the Bank of Industry, you're not borrowing at 23%. And that is very key.
How are they?
No, those ones are very, issue, right? Once you meet the conditions, because if you're going to give out loan to people, you have to assess the ability of the person to repay. Now we know we want to grow, want to be able to do this and so on, but can this person that given this loan repay from the proceeds of the loan? That is very key. So banks are very sensitive to that, though, whether they will be able to recover the money that they are lending to people.
Sorry to interject, what does it tell you when you say that there's a policy to encourage people to take loans and that the money is available at very, very low interest rates, sometimes single digit, but you don't have the numbers to back it up? You don't have takers.
No, we have, you see, you need to have bankable projects. I'll give you an example, and there's something I believe that the central bank has been doing. It was started, I think, in the regime of Professor Soludo, that Allied Sanusi has sustained that. We have what they call the entrepreneurship development centers. Through the entrepreneurship development center, we want to be able to raise people who know their onions and can go ahead and pursue even this Allied project, so that at the end of the day, there are people that know that I'm going to make profit from this, and they invest the money in it, which they have taken from the bank, and they're in a position to repay. So there is something that's also going on. You find, for instance, if I remember correctly, over 100,000, about 45,000 people have been trained in the last couple of, maybe in the last 4 years, and that is very, very important for this country. That you people now, we are not waiting for government largesse or something, but people want to go out there and undertake projects that will create employment, projects that will create additional income for people, and so on. So that is going on.
Mr. Duko, how many of them are actually able to pay back at the rates of interest that the banks are asking? What kind of business are they doing that they can afford to pay back? Because most banks give you short-term money. Nobody's going to give you 10-year money, 20-year money. So even in the area of housing, there's a huge problem because there are more or less no mortgage banks. Mortgage is 20, 30 years. Nobody's giving long-term money.
No, sorry, that's why I say that the central bank had targeted funds. And those funds were meant for long-term borrowing at 7% interest, which central bank passed to the Bank of Industry and some deposit money banks. But when you talk of interest rates, it's not something that you can just wave magic wand, and say that it's going to drop. And that's why the central bank has targeted the rate of inflation, because rate of inflation is important in the economy. If the rate of inflation is high, then the money you pay your depositors must be above the rate of inflation. That's basic. Otherwise, the depositors are paying what we call an inflation tax. And so if that is the case, so you have to go via that way to make sure that the money you pay your depositors is going to drop. You're able to drop it. And because what you charge your borrowers must be above what you pay your depositors. That's a link. Yeah.
That's true. A number of economists have also come here, and we've had conversation with them over the years that Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, as being the governor, this issue of monetary policy and the management of inflation, and of course the interest rate, is one that at times it's difficult for one to really understand why. But simple logic will say that if you allow the interest rates to drop, yes, it will put more money in the economy for people to be able to get and use for projects. But when you say that in managing inflation, you don't want to drop the interest rate, then you kill the ability of people to use whatever they can in terms of facilities from banks to then be able to establish businesses. So I really don't understand where it then becomes an issue with drop the interest rate so that people can take more loans and then find a way to manage the inflation. I don't know. You're an economist.
Yeah,
you probably know better than me.
Yeah, I think the point I try to make is something you can just, Sanusi cannot say today, interest rate was going to be 8%. He cannot
but
say
it will
that.
be managed.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that it has to be something that you have to consistently focus on. And we have inflation targeting and so on and so forth. You focus on it and you work on it. You cannot do that, because when you do that, there are so many other issues. Those things that you factor into determining interest rates, even the cost of doing business is also part of it. So the cost of funding to the banks, the charges the banks pay, come into all this. Everybody appreciates the fact that the lower interest rates it's supportive of economic growth. Okay, but it's not something you can just wait. Sanusi cannot just say it's only 8%. No, he cannot do that.
Okay. Let me swing to Martin here now. Would you say that our banks are safer, in quotes, and more effective? That we don't need to have that fear anymore of us waking up one morning and finding that our bank has gone under and our money gone?
Thank you. Yes, I think as of today, yes, you can say that, but nobody knows what can happen tomorrow. Okay, but yes, starting from even way back before Lamido Sanusi, starting with the regime of Professor Soludo, when he started the consolidation, the banks that survived were relatively stronger than the ones they replaced. And I think what Lamido Sanusi has done with the AMCON, like as Dr. Chizia said, is that AMCON actually came to stabilize the financial system, and it took courage for that decision, to be made. So to be fair to him, yes, it was a very bold decision. However, some people were